Okay. And if you didn't pick up on what she said in the messenger, she had to take her client to a doctor and they gave her an injection and they didn't even get the injection done until after 4 o'clock and she gets off at 4 o'clock. So she had to run her client back to her house, wait for the client's daughter to show up because this injection requires that somebody's there for several hours with her. And
Oh, okay.
she had a grocery order she has to pick up. So she's a little frustrated.
Yeah, I
So
could understand that.
yeah, because in this industry, when she's after 4 o'clock, she doesn't get paid. So she just spent another hour working without getting paid for it. So
Mhm.
which
Ooh,
yeah, which threw her behind here. But good news is she's got another job that she starts in January and she doesn't have to do caregiving anymore. And it's actually a remote job, so she'll be home.
well, that's good.
Yeah.
Good, good.
So a little bit of a pay cut, but by the time you use all the gas that you do for running clients around and the amount of stress and it's kind of funny. The caregiving job, it said paid holidays, and that's true if you work the holiday. If you don't, they don't pay you for the holiday.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
well, how they word it?
that you get paid holidays. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you work the holidays, I said, yeah, you get paid Tuesdays if you work Tuesdays too. And she's going to get to hear this because I'm recording. And then
Yeah.
they started her out like at a base pay. So here's the base pay, and then am I on video for you guys?
Yep.
Okay, but then they have bonus money come in from Medicaid. So then there's what she makes per hour. But when she takes a day off, she makes this. When she works overtime or on a holiday, gets paid time and a half, they base it off of this. So her pay is here and her holiday pay is right there, just a touch over it. And I'm
Oh my
like,
gosh.
I, I told her, I said, they are shysters. They know what they're doing.
Nice word, because I was just going to say Adolf is a good speaker too.
Yeah.
I mean, these jobs these days in New York, they're horrible, man. I mean, we have a lot of labor laws in New York. I've worked in a lot of different states, and I've seen their labor laws, and they're nowhere near as extensive as New York. But New York doesn't even follow half of them, and they do whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, and the bad thing is that we went to Arizona and Las Vegas for our anniversary last.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and this lady that she takes care of has kind of guilted her over that. Like, how dare you go on your anniversary trip? And then we've got something planned this coming August. She's gonna be gone a week, and she heard about that today. So I
Oh,
said, just think you'll get to take off work and don't get guilt trips.
there
That's
you
right.
go.
Exactly.
It's crazy. And this company, my son-in-law actually works for them, and her daughter also works for them. My son-in-law's been there 5 years. And they seem to be really good to their people. They make you take one day per quarter off just to rest your mind. That's it. They call it a mental health day. Just take the day off.
That's
You're,
beautiful.
it's mandated. You have to do it. Oh, and you get
Oh,
paid.
I think that's cool.
Yeah, and you get paid. So the
Wow.
the health insurance is quite a bit less expensive. I mean, it's a good deal, but she's a little nervous about it, and rightfully so. But anyway,
Right.
so just an FYI, I told Jamie already. I've been feeling a little rough today, so I'll be swigging some Sprite as we go.
That's fine. Yeah,
And
we've all been pretty under the weather here, so we understand.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, so how's it been going? We haven't talked in 2 weeks.
Oh, well, between Jamie and I don't know if you agree, Jamie. We've been pretty good. I think Jamie may have been extremely frustrated with me the other day, but she
Okay.
hasn't said much. Maybe she's saving it for this session.
Okay.
But I will be the first one to admit I tried for the longest time during an altercation between Hayden and ourselves. One day, what day was that, Jamie? Saturday or Friday? I mean, and there's no excuses, but John, I was sick as could be, and I'm literally trying to let her handle it. and he is talking over her and being just disrespectful. Like I've said, I've lost my mind in the past because, that's my wife. Do not talk to her like that,
Mm-hmm.
And it was a situation where uh just a couple days before that, I took him out to dinner. I think I told you maybe. I took him out to dinner and we took him to a movie
Okay.
because he home like 3 or 4 days straight right after school. For the most part, he did his chores and was handling his consequences for what he did last week. And this was I would say um the just after you talked with him, I think. And I mean, it slowly started progressing to worse, and then it blew up. And he's said something because the last time we talked, I told you that we allowed him to speak his mind, and he used a few choice words towards me.
Okay.
And in his words, he was basically describing how he basically feels about me and that he doesn't want me, you know, taking part in telling him anything or, having anything to say about his behavior or his disciplines.
How did you
Uh,
respond?
what's that?
How did you respond to him when he said all of that?
Well, I tried. I tried talking to him, and he literally was talking over me and called me a douche. Literally was like, "You are basically a douche." And I asked him not to talk to me like that, and he just kept running off at the mouth. And I got loud. And I don't take pride in it and feel great about it, but I had definitely had enough. I mean, as far as it's been for the last so long, and what he was doing and it's just repeated same offense. And then every time you try to talk to him, it's basically he'll pick one thing that you're saying that you may not be 100% on point correct about, like maybe one minor detail may be off, and he'll stick to that, just keep repeating himself and repeating himself. And I'll tell you that coming from the hood, I don't like being talked to in a manner that is typical of a ghetto hood speaking person where they just look at you and just keep repeating themselves ignorantly over the same thing over and over and completely missing the point. And there's no way to negotiate with them. There's no way to talk to them, and they're not going to hear your point. And they're basically being steadfast
Okay.
in a manner where, like, basically looking at you and saying, "You won't break me. You won't break me." And
Well,
I'm not out to break you. I'm just literally trying to get an understanding.
yeah,
And I
let's talk
lost
about
it.
that for a second because when you're in a standoff, what are some options for you at that point?
Well, that's where I lack because, I mean, in the flesh, I lack in that,
Mm-hmm.
and in the word, I lack in that. And I'm not ashamed to admit that I will need your help. I've prayed for the right passages to look for because I come from, until a certain age, a hostile environment where
Mm-hmm.
you have a chip on your shoulder and you
Yeah.
almost have to because you get eaten alive where I come from.
Yeah.
You know it
Yeah.
it's apply the same amount of force, if not more, back, or you're going to get worse than that. So, and I know he's a kid. I know all of that, but it becomes hard when you have, I don't know if it's nature too, him being a male and just pretty much just looking right at me and saying, yeah, you're talking about things that I'm doing, but guess what? I don't care. And, I don't think you should have anything to say about
That's what you're saying. He was kind of implying to you.
it. Right. Right.
Okay. All right. So let's kind of rewind a little bit. You guys told him he could speak his mind. Jamie, were you there with them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She was
So,
here. I
okay.
don't know if she can't hear
You
you
guys
right.
are lagging a little bit for me, but I think I heard John ask if I was there too. And I was actually, and actually Lonnie isn't aware, but I recorded a lot of it
Oh,
just
okay.
so that like later in time, maybe Lonnie and I could look at it and see what we could have done better and
Hmm.
all those types of things as far as like Hayden too, not just speaking, feeling like Lonnie needed to
Yeah.
necessarily adjust how he handled it, but for Hayden too. And, and I was really supportive of Lonnie that night. I mean, I hope he feels like I was. I just asked him if he was okay afterward because I could see that he was like definitely visibly so upset about the whole thing. And he was like, no, I'm really not. This kid is going to give me a heart attack, and
Hmm.
so I
Well,
told him he's got to just, like, I'm like, all right, well, you did what you could do tonight, and it is what it is right this moment. We're going to just keep on working on it and pray on it together. And I really did not, say anything to him about the way that he talked to Hayden or how he handled it at all, because I do recognize also that, it's not necessarily my role to tell him how he should father or parent, you know what I mean? And I don't want to take away from his role and his instincts in that. And I've been working on that. But so, and I won't say that it was really even hard for me. It wasn't. But, sorry, just a second.
it's all right.
Sorry about that, John. I went to go in my room to get my headset, so it's a little more clear for me. And the dogs are in there with Jamie, and
Yeah.
they're very protective of her.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
My
correct.
pit bull, I don't know if he would protect me or not. I think he'd be more scared than I am.
Yeah, we have two pit bulls, and we're dog sitting Tristan's dad's dogs. One's a Great Dane, and the other one is I call it a cat, rat, bat, rabbit. It's a pug, but it looks
Oh
like
my goodness.
Yeah.
everything in the forest had it.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the
Anyway.
beginning of your all's meeting.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to probably start asking a bunch of questions. So how was Hayden's demeanor at the very beginning when you said we're going to give you an opportunity to speak your mind? How did he start off? You don't have to tell me what he said, but just as far as his demeanor.
His demeanor was pretty much argumentative. It was like very commanding, very not commanding, but very almost
Self-righteous.
stepped out of outrageous. Like he stepped out of childhood and stepped right into adulthood.
So
Like
pretty
he was
confrontational right off the bat.
immediately. Like he had a
Okay.
Yeah,
bulletproof
Would
vest
you
on.
would you agree with that, Jamie?
I feel like he was very self-righteous. He felt very confident in his position in the argument, quote unquote, and he
Okay.
was not afraid to voice how he felt about it in that moment. And he really did just look at Lonnie and be like, you're just being a douche. You
Hmm.
do not,
So he came out
you know,
firing with insults.
he was like, you don't listen to me. You don't actually, he's like, this is why I don't want to talk to you. He was really just kind of,
Wait. He said you don't listen
you
to
don't
me,
listen to
and that's
me.
why I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I got it. So Lonnie, let
Which
me
is
come back over to you. Do
which is
you
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, you're
No, I
good.
was going to say which is pretty much excuses on his part. There are many times where almost every situation where I will listen to him, but when he keeps repeating the same thing that is an exaggerated excuse and not getting to any point, and if I wait till he's done talking and ask him, what do you really mean by that because of this, or this? So I can get an understanding. And he'll just keep repeating it. If I elaborate on my question again, he will go into, I don't remember, I don't know, huh? What did you say? A
Okay,
complete
so
avoidance.
what about if you were to say something like what just give me one of the things he repeated.
He repeat he basically repeated that I was wrong about the events of what I was speaking about
Okay.
in what he was doing. And it was,
So, well, I would say then, have you ever heard of the thing called reflective listening? Would you-
I've heard of it. I don't know the exact
Okay.
definition of it.
So when he says what he says, you reflect back and you say, okay, Hayden, I just want to make sure I'm understanding you,
Uh-huh.
is what you're saying, and then say it and say, now, am I accurate? And
That's what
you'll,
I was doing. Yep.
okay. And then he's still through a fit.
He basically just keeps repeating himself and saying, no, no, you just don't understand. No,
Okay.
you're
And I'm
wrong.
trying
You're
to.
wrong. You were wrong. And I wasn't wrong. I just did not have, say, for example, the exact moment in time that this occurrence actually happened,
Mhm.
or the exact number of days, or he says that he wasn't doing it, and just because I didn't catch him in the act, literally putting the whatever he was smoking to his lips, inhale and exhale, I'm wrong, even though the whole house is filled with the smell again. And I walked up the stairs and he's in his room, not opening the door and frantically trying to get rid of the smell and everything else because I didn't see him. I'm wrong. And that's what he will stand on, no matter what I say. He will stand on
Mhm.
it because I was the only, especially when I'm the only adult in the house. Now he will literally swear up and down I'm wrong and be rebellious to hearing any other words
Okay.
until I get upset and say, well, have you smoked in your room recently? Yes. Okay. Are you supposed to be? No. Okay. So I smelled it throughout the house. I will even say to him, okay, maybe I was wrong about this time, even though John, as a clear grown adult who would not make something up on a person. I know
Mhm.
he was. However, I will even say to him as a child, for the sake of not arguing with a child, okay, maybe you weren't this time, but all the evidence was in your room that you have recently again for the umpteenth time. Yeah, well, I wasn't this time.
Well,
That
okay. So
type of
what,
scenario.
well, let me just say this, and this, you can give me your thoughts on it. It's obvious he's still doing it. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
But when he said you're wrong, I wasn't, and it's the evidence is there. What do you think would have happened if you were to say okay and just left it at that for the time being?
I guess if it was an if I had initiated the conversation as an argument to begin with, but we were literally standing there having a conversation about what his consequence was going to be.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So the topic or the subject to begin with, because he didn't come home from school, I think that's what it was that time, right? I mean, John, this is there's almost an everyday thing. So it's so hard unless I wrote every single thing down and
Yeah.
had the
Yeah.
seven C scrolls or whatever. I I'm telling you, I couldn't keep track of it.
Okay. Well, let me say this. Um, I am absolutely in your corner when it comes to the disrespect thing. Cannot stand it. It runs through me. And a lot of times I don't even give a warning before I jump down somebody's throat for disrespect in the younger age range. Okay. I got that. Hayden, on the other hand, he's in a pretty difficult position just as much as you guys are. He's 14. He's trying to find his way. He's confused. He's got a mom, but he doesn't have a mom. He's got people raising him who aren't his biological parents. So this kid, I, I can only imagine what goes through his mind on a daily basis. So we've got to come up. All of us need to come up with a way where we can be enforceful, stern, but also with the understanding that this kid is hurting. And what he's doing is acting out. And when people act out in that age range and even younger, they're craving attention. They just want somebody to notice them. And I'm trying to work with him, as you very well know,
Mhm.
about making better choices and doing things that are better for him and his future, not just look at it as the here and now. So I'm trying to get him to focus out further than just right now, because we all were 14 before. It's all we did. What's happening right now? We don't think about consequences. We just do what we want to do. And so I'm trying to use real life examples that I know for sure. Like he talked about he was smoking marijuana to cover up his pain. I said, then what happens when the high goes away? He said, I'm pretty miserable. I said, then why do you do it? Well, because it gets rid of it for a little bit. I said, and what were your consequences? And he told me, and I said, so it made you feel good for a little bit, but now you're in trouble for it. I said, I'm still not figuring out why you do it. I'm having a hard time understanding the rationale behind all of that. So I was trying, and I wasn't being hard on him. I was just trying to get him to see, man, this really is not working.
Mhm.
I got to use my
Right. It's not
wife.
worth it.
Huh?
It's not worth it in the end.
Exactly. And I just told him that I said, let me tell you a story. And I told him about my wife, who also had a lot of pain, and she used alcohol to cover it up. And this alcohol turned into this alcohol, and then she ended up being a binge drinker and doesn't remember half of her life. That might be a hyperbole, but you understand my point. A lot of things she doesn't remember because she was so blacked out. And I
Mhm.
told him, I said, there are things that she did a long time ago that are with her to this very day. And if you don't make better decisions, that's what's going to happen. So I'm trying to get him to see through real life. We know what we're talking about, you know. So this is the blessing for me that I at least have this type of storyline to lay down to him to say, look, dude, we care enough about you to try to get you to stop because you're valuable, you know? So that, you know, that was some of our conversation. He wasn't feeling well, so I didn't hold him all night. But bottom line is that kid is lost right now. Unfortunately, Lonnie's the easy target because he's not biological dad or blood relatives, right? Because Jamie, that's your blood nephew, correct?
That's correct. And he
Yeah.
also knows that Lonnie is the person that's like, he knows exactly how to push his buttons and he knows how to get like an immediate reaction out of Lonnie, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we probably need to come up with a way the next time something like that occurs, kind of strategize a little bit how Lonnie can react so it doesn't turn into a heated moment. Like the thing that crossed my mind when you were talking about him insulting you would have been, look, stop right there. You're going to talk to me like a man and you're not going to throw out insults. When you're ready to have a man to man conversation, let me know and I'm all in. But I'm not going to stand here and let you insult me because all that's going to do is cause an argument. And I'm not doing it. You've taken control back. He might yell and scream at you, but you got to stay there and say, let me know when you're ready to talk. What do you think about that idea?
I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea. Eh, it's just in this structure with him, it's an every single day occurrence that
Mm-hmm.
something's going on that it would basically be just putting it on the shelf. And for him at this moment, that's or since I've been in this family, that's been his goal all along is to just get it pushed aside so it doesn't need to be
Gotcha.
taken care of.
Okay. So what
You
my
know,
idea was
but
probably
yeah,
won't work.
I think that would work to alleviate, you know, an argument between him and I. Yeah, but it's not. I don't see it being a ladder to a resolvement in our relationship at
Okay.
all
How
because
about
there has
this?
to be.
How about
uh,
this? Here's what I would also suggest. I don't know how he would react, but what if you said, Hayden, we're going to talk, but before we talk, we're going to pray. And then you can pray with him and talk about, you could even say things like, and this is not for a front, don't do it in a falsified way, but Lord, I love this young man. I want the best for him. So please help us to have a good conversation so we can grow closer together and get to understand each other better. Something like that. Because when you pray to God, there's something about accountability. Like
Mm,
you can't twist it because
right.
and if Hayden can hear that from you while you're speaking to God himself,
Hmm.
you never know. But definitely, I would definitely recommend that. Pray together. And
Definitely.
Jamie.
That seems to be, a really good thing to do. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
and then lay it out on the line. If you guys remember 3 or 4 weeks ago, I told you, let them know the consequences before. So when they walk into it, it's up to them whether they get punished or not. Hayden, I want to tell you two things really quick. First of all, we're going to pray together. Then you pray and you say, now, before we start, if you start throwing out insults and getting loud and argumentative, then there's going to be this consequence. But the thing is, Lonnie, you got to have the mindset of peace, patience, and calmness to make sure you don't react to him, which puts you on that same level. And then it'll turn into, why are you punishing me for? You did the same thing, right?
Right.
So you'll have to be the strong one and disciplined. And that's not easy, especially if there's a young one getting fired up. I mean, if there's one thing that can trigger me in a millisecond, it's a young person spouting off to an adult. Oh my gosh, I just want to go through the
Yeah,
walls.
it drives me insane.
So so if you know you're going to have to talk, you and Jamie can pray first. Then you meet with Hayden and lay it down. We're not going to have a back and forth argument. We're going to talk. If you get obnoxious, if you start insulting me again, because I am not going to allow that here. You're not going to insult me. We can have us a conversation, but if you don't do this in a calm way, then you guys come up with a consequence. Then if he does it, it's on him.
Right. Well, I would add to that. Well, first of all, that sounds like it would be amazing. It would be great. On the true test would see how he reacts, of
Yep.
course.
Yep.
But I definitely would like to request some time with you, maybe one on one or even with Jamie. It doesn't matter to me. Working on me as far as, because I mean I'm already 48 years old and I'll be 49 in February, and the life that I've led and the things that I've done in my life that I'm not proud of, and the way I was raised and born, none of those are excuses. I want you to know that. They are
Mm-hmm.
just all of my foundation.
Yeah.
And I am, in my opinion, and in most people that know me, that I am one of the greatest people that they would know, and one of the easiest to get along with.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are extremely difficult or hostile towards me enough to where you have pretty much got my attention in that way, I can show teeth, and I don't have control over that. Not to say
Yeah.
that I would ever hurt Hayden, because everyone here knows I would never do that, but to fire back,
Mm-hmm.
I am the best fire artilleryman. Let's just put it
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
if shots are fired, I'm not running.
Yeah.
Just put it that way. And it's not when someone's upset with me, especially, or anyone, a child or an adult, if they're upset with me, I would say it's because of their actions. I don't know what Jamie thinks, but I'm not the type of person to provoke anyone in this home ever. To just literally just provoke someone, that's not
Mm-hmm.
my demeanor.
Yeah.
You can ask Jamie for her input on that, but I'm that person that is just
Yeah.
like, I give you everything and anything. I ask for absolutely nothing in return but the same things that you would want: respect,
Sure.
understanding, and just, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
don't lie
Well,
to me. No mind games, no head games, no none of that stuff. And I understand he's a child. And when he was young, just like Tristan, I was very, very lenient of, you know, the difficulties because they are children and they're learning. But the things that we ask of them are not above their level of where they should be right now at all.
yeah. Yeah.
I would never do that.
Yeah. Well, I think that again, it's you guys, all three of you are in a seriously difficult situation because, like I said earlier, he's lost. He's acting out. He wants somebody to care for him, but he probably doesn't understand how to be loved. So it's one of those, I'm going to build up the walls and I'm not going to allow you to get to me. I'm going to hurt you first. That type
Mm.
of a mentality because
Yeah, I agree with that, John. And not to interrupt you, but like last night, I asked him for a hug before bed and told him that I loved him, and he was like, "No," and just walked away and went to bed.
yeah, yeah, he's
You know,
he's
so
he's he's scared to be vulnerable.
he's very scared to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And he had said to me, Aunt Jane, Lonnie was better after I got out of the hospital for a while, but he's getting worse again. And I said, Hayden, yeah, he is. But why is that, bud? He is reacting because your behavior is getting worse again. His
Mhm.
reaction to you is what you're seeing right now, buddy. And you have not been behaving. You've been doing everything you're not supposed to. And you've been very argumentative and rude about it too. And so, he just feels that smoking weed isn't that big of a deal and we should just give him more privacy, more leniency. And we're the toughest parents and the most strict parents of any of his friends. And we're just totally lame, and that's pretty much where he's at with us.
Yeah, no accountability whatsoever. No matter how nicely, how softly, how godly, how you put it to him biblically, how he talks with you and you explain it. I don't care who explains it to him. 24 hours later, he's right back to there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And when I have kids, when they're 13, I'll let them smoke weed. I don't understand what your problem is.
Yeah, he did
Oh.
it too. And I'm like, okay,
And that
buddy,
was the
well,
next day after talking with you. So
Yeah, he definitely has the Great Wall of China up around him right
he
now.
sure does.
And for you guys, that's tough because I know you guys care about him and you want that wall broken now. It just doesn't happen like that.
No,
So
it doesn't.
for now, you still got to lay the law down. Just because he's a hurting kid doesn't mean you let him get away with stuff. And you guys obviously aren't doing that. But if there's anything you can do right now that's gonna be productive, pray for that young man. I do. I pray for him. I pray for you guys on a daily basis. And
Thank
so
you.
we've got, well, you're welcome. You've got to be diligent and persistent and beckoning God, look, we love this kid. Please help us, guide us, and direct us. And then love him. Remember what I taught you guys the first time we talked, Romans 5:8, that God demonstrates his own love for us in this, that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Right now,
Yes.
you two are in a beautiful situation, although it's tough because you're getting to learn how to apply that in real life. You're getting to learn how to love somebody when they're not very lovable and see the
Mm,
preciousness in somebody who doesn't seem to be very precious right now. So you're
mm.
getting so in this situation, just sit back and think about it and ask God, what are you trying to teach us as a married couple through this?
Yeah. It's I'm glad that you brought that up because I do feel like I've felt that way before and said it before about a lot of things that it is no question. There's no question in my mind why God put me and Lonnie together.
Mm-hmm.
We really are, even though we have all the same principles and morals in our Christianity, we like a lot of the same movies, music, things like that. We're very, very, very different in how we handle personal relationships with others and how we perceive situations to be. And it's really funny because he has all the strengths that I don't have. And
Uh-huh.
I have a lot of patience and a lot of like, just looking at the situation from all angles and being able to analyze that. And I really, really keep in my thoughts and accusations that I might be coming up with in my mind, for any situation. I will keep it to myself and really, really think about things before I react to things. And I always, and actually, when Lonnie and I were first together, he had said to me one time, we were walking to our car and he was just observing how I am with all of our family and stuff. And he was like, you do know that, your family basically kind of like walks all over you and expects a lot out of you, right? And, I kind of was like, yep, I do know that. And I'm okay with being in that role right now because that's what they need from me. And eventually the tables are going to turn and they're going to become more independent and they're going to just be able to learn a lot on their own about how much, they actually need to do for themselves and that kind of
Well,
thing. And
I
I
would
think he was
encourage
really
you.
surprised by that.
Yeah, and I would definitely encourage you, don't, if people need help, definitely, but don't be an enabler either.
Yeah. And
There,
that's a hard thing. I definitely,
yes.
we had a conversation about that this week of just like, realizing that in conversation with my sister, I was being too, everyone just kind of sees me as that person they come to and they can say whatever's on their mind and they vent
Yeah.
to me and I'm just the listener and I'm the
Yeah.
person who's in the middle of everything,
Mm-hmm.
trying to be the peacekeeper of all things. And I realized like, there really isn't anything wrong with me saying, I understand how you feel, but I need you to respect my husband and not talk about him that way or
That's right.
whatever the case might be, and just
Yeah.
and really have that role as first and foremost. I need to make sure that I'm putting our marriage first and our
Bingo.
relationship first.
Absolutely correct. Well, and the other thing is this, when you tell somebody the truth, it's not going to make everybody happy,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but that's not your problem.
Yes.
Now,
Right.
and while this is on my mind, Lonnie, I want to clarify something with you
Okay.
because well, it was brought to my attention. I hope you understood the context a couple of weeks ago when I said, talking about Tanya, I didn't care about her feelings. You realize that was in the context of growth and correction, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm making sure because I was like, I don't sometimes when you talk like this in a setting like this, you know what you're trying to get to come across. And it doesn't occur to you that the way you say it might not come out like you meant it. And then the person on the other side of it might think it completely different than the way it was in my head. And
Right.
so I want to make sure you understood. I obviously care about my wife's feelings. That would be really jerkish to not.
Right.
But when
Right.
it comes to correcting her on something that I need to correct her on, or an area she needs growth, that's when you have to go, I care about your feelings, but not as much as you need to know this so you can grow. So I
Right.
want to make sure you had
Right.
that.
I mean, and I kind of stood on it. I put a foot right on it and stepped up on it and talked about it and said that, I've said the same thing, and I think I've been more harsh to my wife and I'm not proud of it, but
Yeah.
I've said the same things. Because when you're trying to do exactly what you said,
Yeah.
get your spouse to be on the same page as you, and they're basically, I don't want to say stuck, but they are definitely living in the feeling at the moment
Right. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
can't see outside of that capsule. And the only way to break through it is to be truthful and tell them,
That's
I
right.
shouldn't have said it the way I've said it to my wife. I know that,
Mhm.
and I've apologized to her. But there's been times when I've said, right now it's your feelings because we're not getting past this. Me
Mhm.
sitting here, considering your feelings, knowing that I love you, that's not enough to ignore the
Mhm.
solution or
Yeah.
what is best for
Yeah.
the both of us right now.
Hey,
Yeah.
the
So
love of my
metaphorically, the way you spoke, I knew where you were coming
okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Now the love of my life just walked in, so hold on a second.
from. Okay.
Okay. All right, thank you.
If
No
you
problem.
guys need
All right.
time, John, we would understand that.
Sorry, guys. Okay.
Did you hear me?
I did not.
If
What'd you say?
if you guys need a moment or something, that's fine with us.
Well, she was dropping off me something to eat because I haven't eaten today. And
Oh, geez.
yeah, I've been not feeling very good, but weirdly enough, when I get sick, I can eat McDonald's chicken McNuggets. It's weird. But do you guys mind if I eat while you guys are talking?
No, please
Are you
do.
sure?
Absolutely.
It's kind of rude, but I have not eaten
No.
and
I'll
she
close
got a
my eyes.
Hey, are you making fun of me?
No, no.
Thank you. I just razzed Lonnie because no, she her daughter her son-in-law has been sick. Her daughter is now sick with the flu. They've quarantined her until Friday, so now she needs to go get them some medicine to take while they're sick. So that's what she was trying to get my attention for. So, but yeah, okay. So,
Oh, it's
um,
always something, you know?
oh, it's crazy, crazy time of
It
year.
really is.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be eating, talking with my mouth full, everything. You get to see the real John now.
That's
That's
okay.
fine.
Please eat your chicken nuggies.
Um,
Fries look
well,
good though.
oh, you want a bite? I emailed one to you. Now, I'm going to say this. Okay, make sure my microphone is there. I want to reiterate that I'm proud of you guys because it seems like you guys are working to be on the same page. And I
We're really
loved,
trying.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I loved what Jamie just said that my marriage is priority. And
Yeah,
that's
Yes.
the
because we had a
relationship.
conversation about it, and I basically begged her out of a situation that happened between us this week to consider me and our marriage before going outside of it and doing certain things. So, and she cried about it and understood, and that's where we're at. So I would say that, well, I guess both of us this week did something that was not in light of what we've learned so far with you,
Mhm.
but we bounced back pretty fast.
And you recognized it.
Yes.
Really recognized it. Yeah.
That's the key, because you're going to make mistakes throughout life. What you do with that mistake is the key. Are you going to continue
Yes.
to walk in the error and not care? Well, that's not repentance. That's not apology. I'll give you,
Yeah. And I gotta say that Lonnie definitely is a lot more humble than he's been in the past.
all right.
He really, really is not a man who typically apologizes
Hmm.
for much, but he lately has been like really, just like I said, just really humble and saying like, I recognize that there are things I need to do. I do need to lead more in God. I do need to learn more. I do need to learn my verses. I do need to, um, you know, even work on his patience a little bit and try to because he'll flat out tell anybody who asks him like, that's not me. Lonnie in the flesh, in the world is not, he flat out told me like it will take God to change me in that aspect because I can't do it on my own. I'm almost 50 years old and I know this about myself
And he's absolutely
already.
correct. And God will help you with that. That's what he does.
So it was, to me, that was a major breakthrough for us, just even hearing him say it out loud. Like you know, I recognize that it is something about myself, but I can't do it on my own. and I'm willing to, pray on it and allow God to
Mhm.
take that for me. So that, and for me, is like huge, huge, huge. I wouldn't say necessary, like it is a weight off my shoulders, but more so just it's just so awesome because I am faithful enough to know that God will take that for him. He
Yep.
will fix it.
Well, I'm
So-
loving that because in the book of James, it says that God opposes the proud, but brings grace to the humble. So,
Yes, we've talked about that a
Lonnie,
lot, actually.
just watch out for that grace, buddy. It gets heavy sometimes. It's freaking awesome.
And I bet it will get heavy because honestly, the very reason why I know I need help with it is because I've, I know biblically, I've put a lot of faith into my, I would say, street smarts, my ability to survive,
Yeah.
and it's what's gotten me. I know that now I know once I became saved that, God was always there.
Hmm.
But I also know that I felt a lot of comfort and knew that my own two hands is what got me out of a lot of things that I might not be here for today,
Hmm.
and it's, I think that's the hardest part for me to walk away from, is to know that my senses and my ability to see through the crowd and know something's coming at me before it got to me. That's a hard thing to let go of, I
Yep.
tell you.
Yep.
You know,
Well, I will say this. There is one cool thing about my situation is that I cannot see facial features. Like I just can't. It's just, I see blobs on the screen. What that does is helps me hear tone of voice a lot better than others would. And your tone tonight is that of a very humble man. I hear
Yeah, I
something.
would agree with that.
Yeah, I hear something in you tonight I have not heard thus far. So that tells me there's growth going on. You know the verse where Jesus said, "Be perfect as I am perfect." You guys remember that verse?
mhm.
Hmm.
Well, that verse messed with me for the longest time. I'm like, he can't mean it like it sounds. I can't be
That's how I
perfect.
feel too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've always struggled
but
with that.
but what is that? My dog or my wife behind me?
It's
Somebody,
my dog snoring.
is it? Oh,
It's my
well,
dog snoring.
I thought something was bumping my chair.
Oh, I thought you meant the sound.
Oh no. But anyway, the word growth, not the word growth, the word perfect, when Jesus said, "Be perfect as I am perfect,"
Mhm.
that is a progressive growth process. It's like the foundation of that word is growth. You grow until you reach that perfect end when we're in eternity. It's not what it means, but somebody else said that they thought it meant that when you're saved, we're righteous in his eyes, so we're perfect. Oh, that's a great look at it. It's just not what it means. So when you want to be like Jesus, be perfect like he's perfect. So you're growing every day. And that's what I'm hearing out of Lonnie right now. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He's
And kudos to
definitely.
you too, Jamie. You had to put some work in too. It's not like he's the only one working here. That's what it takes.
Dang, let
Thank
me wear
you.
my trophy for a second.
Do what?
He said,
What'd
"Let
you
me wear
say?
my trophy for a second."
Oh, uh, I gave you 45 seconds and her 5. Hey, I'll ask these questions too. This is more of a comical question than serious, but I would say it seriously if I had to. But Lonnie, when did this become all about you anyway?
It didn't.
I was about to send you a fry. Now I'm just going to taunt you with it. Ah.
I love bantering with you. Oh,
Do what?
I love comedy and I love going back and forth with you. It's so
Oh,
fun.
that's great.
I don't have too many funny friends in my life, and
Yeah.
I find myself to be somewhat of a comedian. I do that a lot, and it's fun to sit back
He's
and
still
have
being
someone
humble
else
right
do
now.
it.
Yeah. Well, this is my approach to this type of thing. If I can find a way to sneak in a joke I will do it
Mhm.
because this is hard stuff. We're talking real life. We're talking
Yeah.
real people. We're talking real feelings and emotions. And it can get heavy sometimes.
Mhm.
After
That last session was not nice.
Well, after I spoke with Hayden last week, it took me a couple days to get over it.
Really?
I was just hurting for that kid because I can
Oh,
hear the hurt in his voice,
yeah.
and it just weighed on me. So it gets
It's
heavy,
definitely hard.
huh?
It is hard, and it's hard. It is really hard. Oh, it's been such a struggle over the years for us because I've owned up to the fact that my ex-husband he wasn't good with Hayden at all. He could be cruel at times with him. And so when Lonnie and I started dating and we got serious and everything, I knew I was ready for a relationship with Lonnie. And I told you this before, but I did not realize in that moment in time that I really wasn't ready for the father figure for the boys, like that disciplinarian, the authority figure. And I was really, really protective of Hayden because he was so in need of that. He really is. And even when he was that little, I mean, he was 4 years old and he was just such a different little soul. Like he's always been kind of hard, in kindergarten. He went to school. It was like the first week of school, and the school called me and was like, "We can't find Hayden." And I was like, "What?" And they called the police and everything. This kid's missing for like an hour and a half. Guess where he was? He
And
was in the cafeteria. He opened the fridge, started cooking on the big industrial stoves in the cafeteria. He didn't want to go to his first class because he was hungry and he wanted a second breakfast. So he just went right in the kitchen with nobody in there, turned the lights on, started making his own food. So he's just sitting in the kitchen eating, making his
That's
own. I mean,
funny.
yeah, so that's just the kind of, kiddo he is, where he's always kind of done things that were not really age appropriate. He's just always been a very little independent mind. And I do think some of that comes from the time that he did spend with his mom and having to kind of like take care of himself a little bit, figure out what he was going to eat on his own and stuff like that before I took custody of him. So he's just, and there's always been things like that. We brought him a really nice, obviously brand new coat and boots, and he went to school and
Oh
he was like,
man.
"Yeah, James, if you tell them you don't have a coat, then they give you like a really nice comfy one that somebody else already wore,
Mhm.
and it's way more comfortable than mine." So I just threw mine in the garbage and I got a new
I
just
don't know if
these
you guys got to see that. Lonnie, I'm surprised you're not laughing at me at this point.
I saw it,
Oh my
Uh-oh, you dropped it.
gosh. Sprite in the face.
and it was just
Oh
as funny as
man.
you reaching in the grass behind you to pull out everything you're eating.
Wow. Well, because the ice in that cup has clogged together and I can't get the Sprite to come out. So I tried to shake the ice loose and instead the Sprite came up and hit me right in the face. So now,
Oh my gosh.
Lonnie, that's not
From here,
funny.
though, when I'm when I'm looking at your screen, your scenery in the background with the grass and all
Yeah.
Your
that.
marital monkey.
Every time you reached in your bag, it looked like you were reaching in the grass to grab something. And then when you were like, something feels like something's bumping my chair, it's like, yeah, it's trying to get his dinner back.
Darn monkeys.
Hmm.
Just trying to get another banana.
Yeah.
And that was my dog. He's down under my desk at this point. Oh man, I hate wet clothes. I especially hate wet clothes when it's Sprite and not water.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's all
So
sticky and everything.
yeah, but
Yep.
so you guys, this has been a good chat. We hadn't talked in a couple weeks, but you guys seem to like you're really starting to connect. Is that the way you guys feel?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I do too. I feel like our connection is definitely getting back to where, we are remembering all the wonderful things about each other that we do love and the faith
Mm-hmm.
that we haven't been giving enough attention. And, I think it really struck a chord with me and Lonnie in our first or second session when you mentioned, even though life is so stressful and there's so many things that we could put first and be worrying about just because that's the way of the world, we have to remember that our marriage is still number one,
That's
even
right.
when we're stressed out.
That's right.
I
And let
think
me,
that really struck a chord with both of us.
good.
I could tell you I thanked God so much the other night. I haven't told you this yet, Jamie, that the discussion that we had about, the other day when I told you about putting myself and our needs first because we can't help anybody else if we're not there
Right
and
on.
we're not rich and just to not have to struggle so hard to get that point across to you this week was like you noticed right after I said it with the conversation and you apologized and everything. It was like, yeah, you're right. I think I was sick too, but I exhaled so well after that it just seemed like I didn't have to, I didn't have to go through so much. I was elated that you
Oh,
have
that's good
no
to me.
idea.
How you feel
I,
about that,
I,
Jamie?
because I just knew the war was going to be on as soon as I said it, and it wasn't.
Uh,
So,
Good. I'm glad.
yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm so glad for that. I do, you know, I am trying my best to also, because we are emotional creatures as women and
Yeah.
all that too. I am trying to just recognize in myself, okay, even though Lonnie's delivery is not always the best, what is it that he is really trying to tell me? Not that his
Mm-hmm.
delivery that day was particularly bad, because it wasn't. It really wasn't bad, but just to help myself kind of get to a place where I can hear what he's trying to make a solution to, and spend less time trying to think about his facial expression or how he's coming across to me right now, and not allow that to be like my focus, and I do see a huge difference in him feeling like, all right, he doesn't have to quote unquote fight me if I'm receptive. He doesn't
Mm-hmm.
feel the need to be so defensive if I am not on the offense to begin
Mm-hmm.
with. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
just receptive of what he's trying to say, it's almost like, okay, like this didn't turn into the argument I thought it was going to be. And wow, I'm surprised. Now we can kind of move on with our day.
Well,
So,
here's the beautiful thing about it though. You both have, like you talked about earlier, different strengths. You offset
yes.
each other. One thing, and this is something that I'm writing the devotional about in the moment, is that men love to say the wife is to submit to me, darn it. I'm the head of the wife. You obey me. They quoted scripture, but so did Satan.
Mm.
What's the intent and the heart behind that quote? Because men quote that verse. The wife's supposed to submit to the husband, Ephesians 5:22. Well, husbands, I would tell them, go back a verse to Ephesians 5:21, where it says, submit one to another out of reverence for Christ.
Oh, yes.
That means, Lonnie, there are times you need to submit to this woman. That's the truth. Now,
Mm-hmm.
you're the leader. A great leader listens to those he's serving or leading. See how I did that?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
A great leader leads in a way where those he is leading feels like they're being served. That is a great leader. That
That makes
means
sense.
she gets to say what's on her mind. And even if you disagree with it, you're responsible to hear her out. And if it doesn't resonate, if it doesn't feel like the right thing, say, look,
Mm-hmm.
I understand it, but I still feel like we need to do it like this, something like that. But that's what teamwork is. Teamwork is never two people going their own way. Go watch a
Right.
basketball game. Watch all the guys do their own thing. They'll lose every time. And that's the same thing with marriage. And excuse me, now I've been eating these fries too fast. I've got the hiccups. I was trying to eat them. I was afraid that Lonnie was going to reach through my screen and grab one out of my hand the way he's been looking at them. You guys want Hayden healed. You want Hayden to succeed. You want Hayden prosperous. It'll never happen if you two are not unified together.
Amen.
Right.
That's why it's important to get the
Absolutely.
marriage thing right before we move on to anything else. Now, we've talked about Hayden a lot because it's a big deal. I want to know about it, but I'm also getting to work with Hayden, so I'm trying to help out there. But unless your marriage is where God wants it to be, you have no right to be trying to minister to anybody else. Make sense?
Right,
Yes.
that makes sense, yes.
Because there are tons of scriptures in there about that. And one of them, I'll throw one out at you just to kind of, so you know I'm not just throwing out smoke here. And there are a lot of them. This will come from my series that I will teach on a Monday night here in the near future after we get through Ephesians 5, called It Starts at Home. Now Hayden's in the house, so that's a good thing. But it says, men, husbands, respect your wives as the weaker partner, and that's not an insult. The weaker partner as an heir to the throne. You know why? So that your prayers are not hindered. So Lonnie, you don't respect Jamie, your prayers are going to get hindered. That doesn't jolt you a little bit? If a man cannot manage his own home, how can he manage God's church? What's the principle lesson there? If your house is out of order, you have no business going outside of those walls. That's why it's so critically important that you guys are on the same page. In Psalms, it says that how beautiful it is when God's people walk in unity. And I'm
I have
seeing,
that as a quote on our chore
all
board
right,
for our boys.
all right. And I'm seeing you two come together right before my very blind eyes. And I'm loving it. You guys don't know the blessing that is for me to see you guys starting to grow together like you are. I mean, the tone of your all's voices toward each other it's just amazing to me. I'm like freaking out at the moment, to be honest.
So essentially, you're saying that it is, first of all, it's not godly to not be in order in the home, and then to go outside and teach to others. That's hypocritical.
Yep. Well, think about it like this. The principle of that verse is this. If let's say that you guys are doing ministry in the church, or let's just use me as an example. I'm teaching marriage. If I don't manage my own home, if I'm not taking care of my wife, and we're always fighting because I'm selfish, what's that going to do to my mindset when I come and try to teach a marriage class? I'm going to be all scattered, right? If you can't manage your own home, you have no business managing God's church. And in today's world, we could say it, if your house is not in order, that's your priority. If you can't get your house in order, don't worry about anything outside of it until it's in order here.
Right.
And that's the way God's got it. He's got it designed for a reason. So marriage is to be held in honor among all. Notice he didn't say church. Notice he didn't say ministry. Notice he didn't even say kids. He said marriage. Why is that? You got a strong man, then you have a strong marriage. You have a strong marriage, you have a strong family. You have a strong family, you have a strong church. You have a strong church, you have a strong community. It's not,
Right.
it doesn't go backwards. It goes in that direction. That's why
So
when
the order of things, not just keeping order, but the actual order is important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You don't go to Amazon and click proceed to checkout before you pick out your item, right?
Right.
That'd be stupid,
Now
wouldn't it?
that I understand, John.
Same principle. It's the same exact principle. It's got to be in order. And I didn't I teach you guys about the law of order early on?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Because my favorite verse to use is that one where people say, because I hear it all the time, resist the devil, he'll flee. That's nowhere in the Bible, to be honest with you. It's not in there. It's submit yourselves then to God, resist the devil and he'll flee. Oh, now that's in the Bible.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense, and that's a completely different thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've talked about that before.
Yeah, you can't get the devil to flee if you're not submitted to God. He's going to eat your lunch.
Mm-hmm. He is definitely stronger than we are if we don't have God with us.
That's right. You know, the same power in the Greek is called dunamis power. Jesus has that power, as does Satan. The strength of that power is based on the inherent nature of that person or that being. So Satan's power is nothing but evil. Jesus's power is nothing but divine. That means since we're followers of Christ, our authority over Satan is a done deal. He can never have as much power of us if we don't let him have it. Ephesians 4:27 says that do not give the devil a foothold.
Mhm.
The word foothold, I just quote the verse. Do not givle. It's a new word. That's my new John word. Do not
Givle.
give the devil room to move.
A foothold.
Do not give the devil a license to operate. Do not give the devil space. Can't remember it. Something about space. Now, go back to 3 weeks ago when I showed you guys what God's joined together, let no one separate. Why do you think he says that? If there's space between Lonnie and Jamie, there's room for Satan to move. Ephesians 4:27 says, do not give the devil a foothold. Did he say try not to give the devil a foothold?
No, he said,
No.
do not.
He said, do not. Would God ever ask you to do something you're not capable of doing?
No.
Absolutely not. Do not give the devil a foothold. You want your finances to go haywire? Cheat on your taxes. Don't pay your tithes. You're giving him access. Say a little white lie. Jesse Duplantis said it beautiful. He said, ain't no lie white. And I love that because it's true.
Mm-hmm.
I teach in this class. 99.9% truth is a 100% lie.
That's another good one.
And
That's an original.
I want to share with you a dream that I had the beginning of this year. I told Jamie about it when I woke up, and I was part frightened still, but so essentially I was going, I remember it vividly. I was going into the basement of the place where I lived when I was a kid, and I was going down there to light the pilot on the furnace or something. And we had this big, huge octopus furnace, and it was a big dungeony type basement in a brick house. And I get down there, and um, something I couldn't see its face at first was coming towards me, and I'd always been afraid of that basement.
Mm.
And it was talking to me so nicely and so calmly, and saying things that sounded so clear to me at first, and so on and so forth. And then I started getting this feeling like it was a trick.
Mm.
And then the things that were being said to me were, that's the part I don't remember, was the things that were being said to me, but they were all things of like a suggestive nature. Like
Oh.
you know, you should try this tomorrow, and you should do this, and you should do that. And the reason why you should is because of this, this, and this. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And after a while I started thinking to myself, this is this doesn't feel right. This is just, and some of the words that were being said, I'm like, that's totally taken out of context. That's not exactly right. This doesn't seem perfect, you know. And so after a while, I started like, how we do in dreams, trying to test things to see, are we dreaming or not, or is this real or not? And it seemed like I started, like the basement was coming in on me, and things were getting tighter and tighter and tighter till I found myself embraced. And at first it was still like an embrace, like, hey, just trust me, this and that, so on and so forth. And the more I started looking it in the eye and said, you're not fooling me. I know who you are. You're Satan. You're the devil. You are trying to lure me right now. And he
That's
was like,
awesome.
no, but I'm God. I'm God, this and that, so on and so forth. And I said, no, you're not, because my God would not ask that of me. Those are things that it's impossible for me to do. And as soon as I said that, it emerged this dragony looking, demonic, like being, and was like, do you know who I am? You know, I'm this, and this, and blah, blah, blah,
Wow.
and you'll do what I say. And I was like, no, I know exactly who you are.
Wow.
And it basically threatened my life. And I mean, I couldn't even breathe. I could really feel like I was
Yep.
squeezed. And I said, no, I will not surrender to you. I believe in Jesus Christ. I've been saved. And I said, and that's what I believe, and you will not trick me. And I still couldn't do anything about it. I was
Hmm.
rendered powerless until I called out and asked for Jesus to help me. And it was like the other end of the basement just lit right up, bright as day. And I could
Mm.
totally see this being then. I didn't see Jesus, but the whole basement lit up, the grip loosened up, and literally went away. And I woke up and I told Jamie, the only thing I could say is, even though I resisted and told him, you know, I will not surrender to you. I will not do what you're saying. I don't care how you put it. You could take my life now. No. And until the basement got light, and until, you know, what I'm assuming in my dream was Jesus coming and helping me out, there was still nothing I could do.
Hmm.
Absolutely, I was powerless. Not a thing could I do. You know,
Those
so
two hands didn't really help you then, did it?
no, they didn't. It let go, but I still couldn't do anything. You
But you,
know,
well, what do you take out of that dream?
well, now what I took out of it then was basically just the fact that I was glad that I was saved, and that I knew enough of the word to know when I was being tricked at the moment, when I, you know, or that I could see through some of the lies,
Hmm.
you know, and had some knowledge to know where the lies were coming, how they were coming, and be able to recognize that it was not God who was speaking to me. That's what I took at the time. But just this conversation brought me straight back to that dream, that there's there's nothing I could do alone. I don't care how much knowledge I have. I don't care, you know, how much I feel like I possess of, you know, my relationship with God. I still know that I still at that point, there's nothing can be done without God. He completes it all,
Hmm.
you know, because and like you said about the devil and how he knows scripture and everything else. I carry that with me all the time. I've told people that, you know, if the devil does know the Bible backwards and forward, I don't think we will ever know it as good as he does.
Mm-mm. No.
You know, and just like you said, it just brought me right back to it, that, you know, we cannot make the devil flee without bringing God with us.
Yep. So here's a question for you, and I don't know if you guys know this or not. When Satan was quoting scripture to Jesus, how did Jesus respond?
um I'm trying to remember exactly when he did that. Was that in the forest?
Well, it was in different locations actually. He took him to the top of the mountain, took him high above the city, and he was tempting him.
Uh-huh.
And he said,
And he did.
basically, now here's something to remember. It's a great lesson. When Jesus was tempted by Satan, Jesus just came out of the wilderness for 40 years
Mm,
fasting. So what was Jesus at that point? Hungry.
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 He didn't even get a chance to go through the McDonald's drive-through. He was hungry.
Right.
What's the first thing Satan tempted him with?
Food.
Food. If you're the son of God, then turn that rock into, or turn that stone into bread. Because the Bible says, Jesus' response every time, well, the first two times was, but it is also written. He knows the word too. It's so crucial that we as Christians know the Bible. So when something comes up, the Spirit of God will drop something on us and bring to remembrance a verse that contradicts what somebody's trying to tell you.
Hmm.
That's what,
Mhm.
and it's, and think about it, it's all about the heart every time. Going back to my husband's devotional, I put something like, I'm the head of the house, you obey me. That's actually what it says, but that's not what it says. I didn't say it like that, but I said, let me show you. I said, men like to use this verse to affirm their authority. And I said, let me validate this verse by going here. And I did the temptation bit. And I said, so how in the world does that relate to what we just learned in Ephesians 5:23? And then it says, there is no light in Satan at all. And this is me just paraphrasing it. John 8:44 says he is the father of lies. It's his very nature. So when we lie, we actually are teaming up with him. I didn't put that in the script in the devotional, but so how can he speak God's word yet be lying about it? He was trying to deceive, manipulate, and be selfish. That's how he misquoted scripture. It was all
Yeah.
for personal gain. It had nothing to do with the
Gotcha.
whole
It wasn't it, the words he was saying was right,
spot
but
on. Absolutely.
but the context was not only being manipulated, but it was also not being used in light of how God would ever use the word.
Right.
Gotcha.
Motivation, which is our topic tonight, by the way,
Yes,
is everything. Everything.
that
Now,
makes a lot of sense.
you guys, I know, missed the last couple of weeks because being sick, and then you had that one incident. We were right when I think when you guys took off, we were right in the middle of talking about selfishness. I've made it a 3-part series. Tonight's the last night because we're breaking until the first of the year.
Uh-huh.
The first night was talking about selfishness, and we discussed a lot of different ways to be selfish, just practical stuff.
Mhm.
Last week, we talked about the next verse that said, in your relationships, have the mind of Christ. Well, what mind is that? That dude emptied himself. He was equal to God. And it said that he did not take equality with God as something to grasp. Rather, he became a human. In marriage form, I said, so what does that mean to you guys in marriage form? Husband and wife are equal partners. There's not one higher than the other. We just have different roles.
Mhm.
Right?
Gotcha.
Right.
Yes.
You take a head basketball coach, he can't win the game without his players. So he's no
Right.
more important than the players are. They just all have different roles to accomplish one thing, which would be winning the basketball game or the football game. And that's how we have to look at marriage. Lonnie's no greater than Jamie. Jamie's no greater than Lonnie. No one's any more important than the other one. But that's why it's so important for us to know what our roles are in marriage so they can function like they're supposed to. And you guys actually came in at a good time because when I'm done with this marriage killer series, I'm going to go restart Ephesians 5 again. I think it's that important to go back and start it over again and get it back in people's heads exactly what our roles are. And most of the time, the men aren't real thrilled with me when I'm done.
Well, one thing I could tell you about myself is I have never said to Jamie, and I never felt it in my heart. You know, I know the Bible says that, but I've never thought to myself it meant that I'm above her or, you know, I've always tried to search for the meaning. And I know that I've gone through my life all along as far as thinking about anything that I've read that God have said or anything I've heard anyone ever tell me is that above all, God is a loving God. And like you say, would never, like you said tonight, would never ask us to do anything that was impossible, you know. So I always think to myself, why would God say something that doesn't show love, that doesn't show, you know, equality as human beings? You know, in everything, even right down to sin. I don't believe there's any worse sin than another. You know, things like that, because you know, in the flesh, we can add a hierarchy to things that are done and be like, wow, that's, you know, but all of that has to do with feeling. You know,
Yeah.
if somebody murders someone, that we tend to, as you know, humans, put that higher than, you know, stealing a piece of candy from a store or something like that. But in the eyes of God, there's no difference.
Well, remember when I said God opposes the proud? The word
Mhm.
proud literally does mean putting yourself as more important to somebody else.
Right.
That's actually what it means. And then if you remember, I don't know how much you remember of that selfishness night that you guys had to bail because of all the stuff going on. It says, without, gosh, now I can't quote it because my brain's, I haven't had my nuggets all the way yet. Uh, without, so I'm going to say it in John's terms. This comes from the book of John. Without selfish ambition or vain conceit, in all humility, consider others' interest above your own. Well, you can't do that if you're all about you. And
No,
Right.
you
we,
can't
and
be
we,
humble if you feel
that's,
that you are the most
yeah.
important.
And when you look at the word, honor in that verse, honor others above yourselves, it's exactly what it
Mhm.
means. Put them above you. And then when you go to the marriage covenant, I mean, this is why I love teaching this stuff, because people don't really realize that the Bible is almost like a love story of marriage. Where
Mhm.
Christ calls us his bride. There are
Uh-huh.
times that we're called his children. I get it. But most of the time, it's not always. Most of the time, or a lot of the time, it's bride. You go to Jeremiah 3, or I'm sorry, Isaiah. And in Isaiah, it says, the creator is your husband, God Almighty. Why would he say that? He's emphasizing, in my mind, the importance of marriage.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, he would have said, I am your God, your creator. Why would he say, I'm your husband? Why would he throw that random bit in there? Must be pretty important.
Or boyfriend or whatever.
Yeah, my fiance.
Yeah, fiance.
Yeah, it's amazing. So when you read through the scriptures, well, this is Jesus talking to his people, his bride. Consider others' interest above your own. And then when it went on through that study, we last week we talked about having the mind of Christ in your relationships. Well, I've been wording it wrong. I said which is the most important relationship. I should have said what's the priority relationship, because
Gotcha.
relationships are important, but
Right.
you set your priority in your marriage relationship before all others. You could take it as most important, but I'd rather say top priority is marriage.
Yes, I
It
think
says,
that's a
yeah,
better way.
yeah. Well, have this mind that Christ had. And what was that? He lessened himself and became as a servant. And I said it like this, and this is where I want to stop. Goodness, I have the hiccups. Christ emptied himself of his divine nature for us. Did he do it out of selfish reasons? No, if he was going to be selfish, he'd have stayed where he was. But
Mhm.
his unselfishness and sacrifice that had no ulterior motives has saved all of mankind for those who accept it. That's what he's getting out of it. That's the blessing for him, is we're reconciled back to him. That's why they call him the second Adam, because the first Adam messed it all up. Come to
Mhm.
the second Adam, he sacrificed to reconcile us back to him, which is the reward for him. He got his people back that accept him, right? And
Right.
so I finished up last week and I said, well, if you're emptying yourself out for your spouse, what should we hope happens? And I think my wife's the one that spoke up and said, well, hopefully you're getting filled back up by your spouse. Right. I said, you can either breathe life into your spouse or suck the life out of them.
Wow.
Yeah, I like that.
And our goal and job and responsibility to please God is to breathe life into our spouse. And then we both win. Because see, nobody wins and loses. It's not a Jamie wins and Lonnie loses. If Lonnie wins, Jamie wins. Lonnie loses, Jamie loses.
It's true.
So these are just little
Wow.
principles I like to throw out because it's so crucial. So
Very
All I
true.
can say is I've got a lot of reading to do. Seriously. Because I mean, I'm always, and it seems light to say of the Bible, but I'm always intrigued to learn. I was very good in school, very good in college, and I like to be a student. I like to
Mhm.
learn. If I could make a living being a student, I swear I would do it. Seriously, because I think it's one of the only things we can do in this world to really benefit the most from. You go to work every day. Yeah, you get a wage, you take care of yourself, you're doing what God asked you to do, hard works. But in the long run, you get beat down.
Mhm.
You go to become a student, I mean, I just feel like it beefs my brain, and it enlightens me to know things.
Yep. Well, one thing about the scriptures, the more you study it, the bigger it gets. And I remember when I started this, I'm going to pause this because I don't think Tanya needs to see all this. She's probably heard it 1,000 times.